Emma Carter never expected anything unusual to happen that Saturday afternoon. Her small house in a quiet Massachusetts neighborhood felt unusually silent. The sky outside was gray, the kind of weather that made the world look softer and a little lonely. She sat in the living room with a box of old sketchbooks spread across the couch. She had not opened them in years. Life, responsibilities, and her husband's busy career had slowly pushed her passion for art into a forgotten corner. But today, for reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a pull toward those old pages. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was longing. Maybe she simply missed the person she used to be. Daniel, her husband, had left early in the morning for another long shift. He had promised again that he would be home early. Emma didn't even wait for promises anymore. She had heard too many. She felt love for him, but she also felt something else lately. Distance. A soft ache she carried quietly as she flipped through a sketch of a lighthouse she once visited. A gentle knock at the door broke the silence. Emma frowned. No one usually visited without calling. She wiped her hands on her jeans and walked to the door, unsure who she would find. When she opened it, she was surprised to see Ethan Miller, Daniel's longtime friend. He stood there holding a small umbrella, rain dripping off the edge. He had a calm, steady look that made him easy to trust. He offered a polite smile. "Hey, Emma," he said. "Sorry to drop by unannounced. Is Daniel home?" She shook her head. "Not yet. He's running late again." Ethan nodded as if he had expected that answer. "Yeah, he told me earlier he might be stuck at work." He hesitated for a moment, looking slightly unsure. "Actually, I came for something else. Daniel mentioned you used to draw. I wanted to ask if I could see your work, only if it's not a bother." Emma froze for a moment. Her art. No one ever asked about her art. She wasn't even sure Daniel remembered she used to draw every day. She had never shown her sketchbooks to anyone outside her family. The request felt strangely personal, almost intimate, but not in a romantic way. It felt human. It felt like someone cared. She crossed her arms without realizing it, a nervous habit. "You want to see my drawings?" Ethan nodded again, this time with more confidence. "Yeah, I've heard you're talented, and I've always admired people who create things. I was hoping you'd share some of your work." Emma felt a mix of surprise, curiosity, and hesitation. She didn't know why someone like Ethan, quiet, thoughtful, always respectful, would be interested in her old sketches. But something in his eyes looked sincere, not like a favor or polite gesture, but real interest. No one had looked at her like that in a long time. She stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Okay, come in." Ethan walked into the warm living room, brushing water off his jacket. He noticed the scattered sketchbooks on the couch and smiled. "Looks like I came at the right time." Emma gave a small laugh. "I was just going through them. I haven't drawn in years." She sat down and picked up the top sketchbook, suddenly feeling shy. Ethan sat across from her, attentive, but not intrusive. She opened the first page and felt a tiny knot form in her chest. These drawings held her old dreams. Her old feelings, things she had forgotten how to talk about. "I'm not sure they're good," she said quietly. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "I'll be the judge of that." His tone wasn't teasing. It was warm, encouraging. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt seen as she handed him the sketchbook. A soft stir moved inside her. Not romantic, not dramatic, just a forgotten part of herself waking up. She realized how much she had missed this version of her creative, expressive, alive. And she had no idea that this simple request, this gentle moment would shift the path of her life in ways she didn't expect. But for now, all she knew was this: Ethan had asked to see her art, and she decided to show him. Emma watched Ethan flip through her sketchbook with a level of focus she almost wasn't prepared for. He didn't rush. He didn't scan casually. He studied each drawing as if it deserved attention, as if it mattered. Emma wasn't used to being looked at or her work this way. She sat across from him, fingers twisting from nervousness. Unsure what he would say, "You're very talented," Ethan finally said, his voice calm but sincere. "These sketches feel alive, Emma. You capture emotion in a way I almost never see." The words caught her off guard. She didn't know how to respond. Daniel had never said anything like that. Her friends sometimes complimented her, but in a quick, polite way. Ethan's words felt differential, thoughtful. She felt warmth rise in her chest, mixture of gratitude and something else she didn't want to name. Ethan gently turned the page to another drawing. This one, a quiet street she once visited on a snowy night. He studied it for a long moment. "You draw the world the way you feel it, don't you?" he asked. Emma blinked. No one had ever said that, but it was true. "I guess I do," she admitted softly. A small smile touched Ethan's lips, but it wasn't playful. It was understanding. When he flipped to the next page, he paused completely still. Emma leaned forward, confused at first, till she saw which drawing he was staring at. It was a portrait she had completely forgotten about. A man standing by a window, his face half in shadow, his eyes filled with quiet sadness. She had drawn it during a time when she felt invisible, when she felt Daniel slipping away into long work hours and constant stress. The sketch carried everything she never said aloud. "This one," Ethan said slowly, "is powerful." Emma swallowed, unsure of how much to reveal. "I drew it years ago. I was going through a lonely time." Ethan didn't look up immediately. He kept studying the drawing as if trying to understand the silence behind it. When he finally met her eyes, there was no judgment, only empathy. "It shows," he said gently. "Whoever this is, they look like they were carrying something heavy." Emma nodded. "Sometimes I've felt that way too." That simple admission felt strangely freeing. She hadn't meant to share anything personal, especially not with Ethan. But the room felt safe, like a space where honesty wasn't risky. For once, she didn't feel like she needed to pretend before either of them could say anything more. Emma's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. A message from Daniel. "Running late again. Don't wait up." The word stung in a familiar way. Predictable, heavy. It was not the message itself, but the pattern, the feeling that she was always waiting, always adjusting her life around his absence. Ethan noticed the sudden change in her expression. "Everything okay?" Emma forced a small breath. "Just Daniel. Same thing as always." Ethan didn't pry. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. He simply nodded, understanding more than she expected. Moments later, thunder rumbled outside. The lights flickered once, twice, then went dark. The house fell into a warm, candlelit silence. Emma's side used to power cuts during storms. But the sudden darkness made everything feel closer, softer, more honest. "Looks like we lost the power," Ethan said. Trying to lighten the mood, Emma lit a couple of candles and placed them on the table. The golden glow spread across the room, casting gentle shadows over the walls and across Ethan's face. The atmosphere shifted, comfortably quiet, almost intimate, but still respectful. They sat closer than before, not by intention, but by circumstance. And as Ethan returned to flipping through her sketches, the moment felt like a bridge connecting to people who had never truly talked beyond casual greetings. "You know," he said after a while, "Daniel tells me he's lucky to have you." Emma looked at him, surprised. "He does." "Yeah," Ethan replied. "He just doesn't slow down enough to show it." Those words hit deeper than she wanted to admit. Maybe she knew this. Maybe she had tried to ignore it. But hearing it from someone else made the truth feel sharper, clearer. She whispered, "I just wish he noticed me more." Ethan didn't move closer. He didn't say anything inappropriate. He simply said, softly but sincerely, "You deserve to be seen." Emma, her breath caught not because the words were romantic, but because they felt real. Before she could respond, a loud crack of thunder shook the house. Emma jumped slightly, and the moment broke, spreading a gentle tension between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was simply human. And it was only the beginning of something neither of them expected. The rain poured steadily outside, creating a rhythmic tapping against the windows. Inside, the warm glow of candles made Emma's living room feel safe, almost magical. The storm had knocked out the electricity completely, leaving the space intimate and quiet. Emma and Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by her scattered sketchbooks. The shadows flickered across their faces, softening the edges of the moment. But it also made it heavier somehow. Pause in time. Where emotions could be felt without words. Emma hadn't realized how tense she had been until she finally relaxed in Ethan's presence. He wasn't judgmental, he wasn't impatient, and he didn't try to push her in any way. He simply looked at her work with care and listened when she spoke. That alone was enough to make her heart feel lighter, even though it carried years of weight. She had been craving understanding, and in this simple act of sharing, she found it. "I never thought anyone would really see these," she said softly, flipping through another sketch. "Most people just glance and say nice or don't say anything at all." Her voice was barely a whisper, almost drowned by the sound of rain on the roof. Ethan leaned forward slightly, careful not to cross any invisible boundary. "You deserve more than that," he said. "These aren't just drawings, they're pieces of you, and they matter." The words made Emma look down at her hands, twisting the edge of a sketch. She had always longed for someone to see her inner world, the part that didn't speak loudly but screamed quietly on paper. Her marriage with Daniel had love, yes, but lately it felt like they were two people living in parallel, only brushing shoulders. With Ethan, she felt acknowledged. She took a deep breath and brought out a sketch she had never shown anyone. It was a portrait of herself, staring at the horizon, a soft sadness in her eyes. She remembered drawing it on a night she had cried, alone, wondering if anyone would ever notice her struggles. Ethan's eyes softened when he saw it. "This one, it's different," he said carefully. "It feels honest, vulnerable, but strong." Emma looked at him, startled by how clearly he saw what she had tried to hide. I don't usually show this one," she admitted. "I guess I was afraid people wouldn't understand." Ethan shook his head gently. "I understand," he said. "You don't have to hide it." There was no judgment in his tone, just simple, steady acknowledgement. The rain's steady rhythm created a quiet intimacy in the room. The storm made everything outside feel distant. Emma realized she had never experienced this kind of calm, non-judgmental attention in years. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was something purer: recognition, validation, human connection. A sudden crack of thunder startled her, and she instinctively leaned back a little. Ethan noticed immediately, and without moving closer unnecessarily, he reached out and handed her a blanket. "Here, this might help," he said, his voice soft. The gesture was kind, thoughtful, protective. And Emma felt a strange warmth spread in her chest, not longing exactly, but comfort, care, and something she hadn't realized she had missed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply sat together, surrounded by her art, the storm outside, and the quiet hum of shared understanding. It felt like a secret world, one she didn't want to end. Then Ethan spoke again, his voice low, thoughtful. "You know, Daniel tells me all the time how lucky he is to have you. I just wish he showed it more." Emma's heart twisted. Those words were sharp in the honesty they carried. She had always known it deep down, but hearing it from someone else made it undeniable. I wish he noticed me more," she whispered. She wasn't angry, just tired of feeling invisible. Tired of hoping her efforts were seen, Ethan didn't move closer. He didn't offer anything beyond his words. Yet his presence alone seemed to fill the void she had been carrying. "You deserve to be seen," he said quietly. "Truly seen." The sound of rain intensified, and the lights flickered again. Emma felt the moment hang in the air between them, heavy and fragile. It was emotional, yes, but not awkward. It wasn't inappropriate. It was real, the kind of connection people rarely find. Before they could linger further, a loud sound echoed outside, a car door slamming. Emma's heart jumped, and Ethan's gaze followed hers. Both realized instantly who it was. Daniel? The tension in the room shifted. The moment, delicate and intimate in its emotional honesty, was suddenly interrupted. Emma's chest tightened. She wasn't expecting him yet. She wasn't ready for the world outside their quiet storm to intrude. But the pause wasn't unpleasant. It was only the beginning. Something had changed in Emma, in her perception of herself, and in the way Ethan saw her. And though the arrival of her husband shattered the calm, it didn't erase the truth that had just been revealed. She could still be seen, and it mattered. The sound of the car door slamming outside broke the calm of the candlelit room. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked toward the door and her chest tightened. Daniel was home, drenched from the rain, his expression a mixture of confusion and surprise. The moment she had shared with Ethan, the quiet understanding, the vulnerability, the unspoken acknowledgement of her feelings felt suddenly fragile, like glass waiting to break. Daniel stepped inside, shaking off his umbrella. Emma, Ethan. His voice carried a note of suspicion, but also curiosity. He paused, taking in the scattered sketchbooks, the candles, and the soft glow that filled the room. Ethan stood immediately, putting himself in a position of clarity and calm, almost as if preparing for this moment. Daniel, Ethan said carefully, I just came to see Emma's sketches. That's all, nothing else. His tone was firm but gentle. There was no defensiveness, no awkwardness, just honesty. Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Daniel, Ethan asked to see my art. I showed him because I wanted someone to notice it. To see me, and I realized that's something I've been missing. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was strength behind it. She didn't want to hide anymore. Daniel's brows knitted, a mixture of surprise and guilt crossing his face. He glanced at the sketches, at Ethan, and finally at Emma. I didn't realize. I know I've been busy, but I didn't know it felt like this. His voice softened, carrying regret rather than accusation. Emma nodded, a small sigh escaping her. It's not just about being busy. It's about feeling seen, feeling appreciated. I've loved you for years, Daniel, but lately it's been like I'm here, but no one really notices me. Not really. The room felt heavier now, but in a way that made space for honesty. Ethan, standing respectfully near the door, gave a small nod, silently supporting Emma without overstepping. He had been part of this moment, yes, but he wasn't intruding. He was a witness to the truth finally being spoken. Daniel sank onto the edge of the couch, his wet shoes, leaving tiny marks on the wooden floor. Emma, I've been blind, he admitted softly. Taken you for granted, and I didn't realize how much you needed more than just me being around. I'm sorry. Emma felt a wave of emotion, a mixture of relief and cautious hope. She had been carrying this weight alone for too long, and finally the words had come out. I just want to be noticed, Daniel, to feel that you see me for who I am, not just the things I do for the family or the chores or the house. Just me. Daniel reached out slowly, taking her hand in his. I see you, Emma. I see you now. Really? I don't want to ignore you anymore. His voice was quiet, sincere, and there was a softness she hadn't heard in months. Ethan smiled gently, giving them space. I'll let you two talk, he said. Emma, keep drawing. Your art is amazing, and it deserves to be shared. He glanced at Daniel, then back at Emma. And Daniel, don't forget to notice her every day. Before leaving, Ethan gave a small nod and stepped out into the rain. The front door clicked softly behind him, leaving Emma and Daniel alone. The room felt different now, lighter but full of possibility. The storm outside was still loud, but inside, a quiet clarity had settled. Daniel turned to Emma, his eyes earnest. Can you show me your drawings? All of them? Emma smiled, a mixture of relief and joy spreading across her face. Yes, she said softly. She felt safe again, not just physically, but emotionally. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen. They sat together on the floor, surrounded by sketches, sharing memories of why she had drawn each one, and Daniel listened. He didn't interrupt, he didn't rush, he just listened. That was enough darts passed, and the storm slowly faded outside. By candlelight, Daniel and Emma had not only revisited her art, but also their connection. It was not perfect, not fixed overnight, but it was real. They had talked, understood, and begun to rebuild the bridge that had started to crumble. Emma realized something important that night. She could be both loved and recognized. She could share her passions, her thoughts, and still feel safe with the people she cared about. Daniel's willingness to truly see her was the start of a deeper bond. And Ethan's gentle support had reminded her that validation could come from unexpected places. As they cleaned up the scattered papers and turned off the candles, Emma felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in months. She smiled at Daniel, who returned it with sincerity. No more pretending, no more hiding. The truth had been spoken, she had been seen. And for the first time in a long time, her heart felt lighter. The night ended quietly, but with a promise of understanding, of recognition, and of the slow, steady rebuilding of a love that had almost gone unnoticed. And Emma knew that no matter what storms came, she would always have her art, her voice, and now someone who truly saw her.